In the heart of bustling London, amidst the towering skyscrapers and the ceaseless hum of urban life, a solitary figure moved with an air of quiet desperation. His name was Edward Blake, a man haunted by a chilling secret, a secret that threatened to consume him entirely. Edward was a renowned journalist, his sharp mind and keen eye for detail earning him a reputation as one of the city's most respected investigative reporters. However, beneath the surface of his professional success, Edward harbored a deep-seated fear, a fear that stemmed from a tragic event that had shattered his life years ago. As a young man, Edward had been deeply in love with a woman named Elizabeth, their bond as strong as the ancient oak trees that dotted the English countryside. They were inseparable, their dreams intertwined, their future seemingly set in stone. But fate had other plans. A cruel twist of destiny robbed Edward of his beloved Elizabeth, leaving him adrift in a sea of grief and despair. The world around him lost its vibrancy, its colors muted, its sounds muffled by the relentless echo of his loss. Consumed by sorrow, Edward sought solace in his work. He became a relentless force for good, his articles exposing corruption and shining a light on the darkest corners of society. However, his relentless pursuit of justice came at a price. He made enemies, powerful figures who sought to silence his voice and bury the truth he uncovered. And one fateful night, those enemies struck, their vengeance swift and merciless. Edward was ambushed in a dark alleyway, his attackers leaving him for dead. He lay there, bleeding and broken, his life ebbing away. But as he drifted closer to the precipice of death, a strange and unexpected thing happened. A spectral figure materialized before him, its form shimmering with an ethereal glow. The figure's eyes held a depth of sorrow that mirrored Edward's own, but there was also a steely determination in its gaze. The spectral figure spoke, its voice a whisper carried on the wind. It told Edward that his time had not yet come, that he had a purpose to fulfill, a mission to complete. It spoke of vengeance, of bringing those who had wronged him to justice. Edward, fueled by a newfound resolve, fought against death's grip. He clawed his way back to life, his body scarred but his spirit unbroken. He emerged from the darkness, a changed man, a harbinger of vengeance. With the spectral figure as his guide, Edward embarked on a relentless quest to bring his attackers to justice. He used his journalistic skills to uncover their secrets, to expose their crimes to the world. He became a ghost in the night, a relentless force that haunted their every step. One by one, Edward's enemies fell, their downfall swift and public. The city watched in awe as the once powerful figures were brought to their knees, their crimes laid bare for all to see. But Edward's thirst for vengeance was not easily quenched. He sought not just justice, but retribution. He wanted his enemies to suffer as he had suffered, to feel the pain that had consumed him for so long. As he delved deeper into the darkness, Edward's line between justice and vengeance began to blur. The spectral figure, once a guiding light, now seemed to revel in his descent into the abyss. Edward's actions drew the attention of a group of paranormal investigators, a team dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of the supernatural. Nestled amidst the bustling cityscape, towering over the surrounding buildings, stood the Grand Majestic Hotel, its once opulent facade now shrouded in an air of neglect and decay. Once a beacon of luxury and sophistication, the hotel had fallen into disrepair, its doors closed to the public for decades. Rumors swirled around the Majestic, tales of hauntings and paranormal activity that had transformed the once vibrant establishment into a chilling ghost town. Drawn by the allure of the unknown and the thrill of the macabre, a group of intrepid ghost hunters, armed with their equipment and fueled by a thirst for the paranormal, decided to venture into the depths of the abandoned hotel. There was Ethan, the group's fearless leader, always eager to confront the supernatural. Emily, the skeptic, her rational mind constantly challenged by the inexplicable. Sarah, the sensitive one, attuned to the subtle shifts in energy that often preceded paranormal encounters. And finally, Ben, the tech-savvy member of the group, armed with his trusty camera and audio recorders, hoping to capture evidence of the hotel's spectral inhabitants. As they stepped through the creaking front doors, a wave of cold, musty air washed over them, carrying with it the scent of dust and decay. The once grand lobby was now dimly lit, the ornate chandeliers casting eerie shadows that danced across the cracked marble floors and cobweb-draped walls. A thick silence hung in the air, broken only by the occasional drip of water from a leaky faucet and the faint creak of the settling building. Undeterred by the oppressive atmosphere, the group set up their equipment, their flashlights piercing the darkness as they began their investigation. They wandered through the labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoing in the empty rooms, their senses on high alert. The air grew heavier with each passing step, the silence punctuated by the occasional whisper of wind through the drafty hallways. As they ventured deeper into the hotel's depths, they stumbled upon the ballroom, a once magnificent space now reduced to a shell of its former glory. The grand piano stood in the center of the room, its keys yellowed with age, its polished surface reflecting the flickering light of their flashlights. As they approached the piano, a soft melody began to play, its notes echoing through the empty ballroom, the source of the music unseen. Sarah, her sensitive nature attuned to the paranormal, felt a wave of sadness wash over her, as if the very walls of the ballroom were weeping for the lost grandeur of the past. Dunwich Manor, a sprawling estate nestled in the heart of the English countryside, had long been shrouded in mystery and fear. Built in the 18th century by the eccentric Lord Harold Dunwich, it was a place of grandeur and opulence, with sprawling gardens, intricate architecture, and rooms filled with priceless artifacts. But beneath its splendor lay a dark and sinister history that would haunt the manor for centuries. Lord Harold Dunwich was a man of great wealth and influence, known for his fascination with the occult and the supernatural. He spent years amassing a vast collection of rare and forbidden books, ancient relics, and arcane objects. Seeking to unlock the secrets of immortality and eternal power, his obsession led him to perform dark rituals and summon entities from beyond the veil of reality, binding them to his will. In the depths of the manor, hidden from prying eyes, was a secret chamber where Lord Dunwich conducted his experiments. It was here that he discovered the most potent of his artifacts, an ancient, cursed mirror that was said to trap the souls of those who gazed into it. Desperate to achieve immortality, Lord Dunwich used the mirror to siphon the life force of his servants and guests, dooming them to an eternity of torment within its glassy depths. As the years passed, Lord Dunwich's malevolent deeds began to take their toll. The manor became a place of death and despair, with the once vibrant halls now echoing with the anguished cries of the trapped souls. The townsfolk spoke of ghostly apparitions, strange lights, and unexplainable phenomena that plagued the estate. Fearful of the dark presence that lurked within, they avoided the manor at all costs. One fateful night, a powerful storm swept through the countryside, and a bolt of lightning struck the manor, setting it ablaze. The fire raged through the halls, consuming everything in its path. Lord Dunwich, trapped in his secret chamber, perished in the flames. The cursed mirror was shattered, releasing the tormented souls it had held captive. The manor was left in ruins, a charred and desolate husk of its former glory. For decades, Dunwich Manor lay abandoned, its secrets buried beneath layers of ash and rubble. But the legend of its haunted past endured, and whispers of the dark deeds that had taken place within its walls continued to spread. It wasn't until the late 20th century that the manor would once again become the focus of attention. Dr. Emily Carter, a renowned historian and paranormal investigator, was drawn to Dunwich Manor by the tales of its haunted history. She had spent years researching the occult and was determined to uncover the truth behind the legends. Eldergrove Forest was a place of ancient magic and dark secrets, where the trees whispered tales of woe and shadows danced in the moonlight. It was said that those who ventured too deep into the forest would never return, lost forever to the malevolent spirits that dwelled within. Despite the warnings, a seasoned hiker named Jack decided to explore Eldergrove, drawn by the challenge and the allure of the unknown. Jack prepared for his journey with meticulous care, packing supplies and mapping out his route. He entered the forest at dawn, the early morning light casting long shadows across the path. The deeper he went, the denser the forest became, with towering trees blocking out the sun and an eerie silence enveloping the air. As he hiked deeper into the forest, Jack began to notice strange markings on the trees, symbols that seemed to glow. Hidden deep within the forests of New England lies an abandoned orphanage known as Maplewood Manor. Once a place of refuge for children without homes, it now stands in eerie silence, overgrown with ivy and surrounded by tales of tragedy and loss. Drawn by the sinister legends, a group of friends decides to spend a night in the orphanage, unaware of the horrors that await them. Sarah, Mike, Emma, and Tom were thrill-seekers with a fascination for the supernatural. They had explored haunted places before, but none as infamous as Maplewood Manor. Armed with cameras, flashlights, and recording equipment, they set out on a crisp autumn evening, the sun setting behind them as they approached the decaying building. As they drove, they exchanged stories they'd heard about the orphanage. Children vanishing, strange lights in the windows, and ghostly laughter in the dead of night. The orphanage loomed before them, its windows like dark, empty eyes. The front door creaked open with a ghostly wail, revealing a dimly lit foyer covered in dust and cobwebs. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay. As they stepped inside, the temperature seemed to drop and a sense of foreboding settled over them. They decided to set up a base camp in the main hall, laying out their equipment and mapping out their plan for the night. While exploring the main hall, they heard the faint sound of children laughing, though the building was empty. Mike, the skeptic, brushed it off as the wind, but the others were not so sure. They set up their cameras and decided to split into pairs to cover more ground, unaware that they were being watched by unseen eyes. As Sarah and Tom headed upstairs, Emma and Mike ventured into the basement, each pair hoping to uncover different aspects of the orphanage's dark past. Sarah and Tom found themselves in the playroom, a once cheerful space now filled with broken toys and faded murals. As they examined the room, Sarah felt a cold hand grasp hers. She screamed and pulled away, but no one was there. Tom captured the incident on camera, the evidence sending chills down their spines. They reviewed the footage and saw a faint, ghostly outline of a child next to Sarah. Determined to find more evidence, they continued exploring the upper floors. In one of the dormitories, Emma discovered an old diary hidden beneath a loose floorboard. It belonged to a girl named Eliza, who wrote about the cruel treatment the children received from the headmistress, Miss Abigail. The diary entries grew darker, detailing strange rituals and the disappearance of several children. As they read further, Emma and Mike realized the extent of the horrors that had taken place in the orphanage. They recorded the diary's contents, feeling a growing sense of dread. Mike and Emma followed clues from the diary to the basement, where they found a hidden room filled with occult symbols and dusty tomes. The air was thick with malevolence, and Emma's flashlight flickered ominously. They realized that Miss Abigail had been performing dark rituals, sacrificing the children to summon a powerful entity. The room seemed to pulse with an evil energy, and they knew they had to document everything for proof. They set up additional cameras and began a thorough investigation of the room. As they read from one of the ancient books, a sudden chill swept through the room. The walls seemed to close in, and they heard a guttural growl. The entity that Miss Abigail had summoned was still trapped in the orphanage, its anger growing with each passing year. The friends quickly realized they needed to leave, but the building had other plans. The door slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. Emma tried to force it open, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. The orphanage came alive with supernatural activity. Doors slammed shut, trapping the friends inside. Shadows moved of their own accord, and whispers filled the air. In the quiet town of Ravenswood, there stood an old manor that had long been abandoned. The house, once grand and majestic, now sat in a state of decay, its windows shattered and its walls covered in ivy. The locals whispered about the manor's dark history, a history filled with tales of madness, death, and unexplainable occurrences. It all began in the late 1800s when the manor was built by the wealthy and enigmatic Edward Blackwood. Edward was a recluse, rarely seen in town, and his sudden wealth was a source of much speculation. Some said he had struck gold, while others believed he had made a pact with the devil. Whatever the truth, Edward's fortune allowed him to build the grandest house in the county, a mansion that stood as a testament to his mysterious rise. For years, Edward lived alone in the manor, his only company being a series of housekeepers. They would leave abruptly, pale and terrified, refusing to speak of what they had seen. The townspeople noticed strange lights flickering in the manor at odd hours, and eerie, disembodied voices would echo through the night. One stormy night, a chilling scream was heard coming from the manor, followed by an eerie silence. When the townspeople mustered the courage to investigate, they found the house empty. Edward Blackwood had vanished without a trace. Decades passed, and the manor fell into disrepair, but the stories of its haunting persisted. Those brave enough to venture inside reported seeing shadowy figures, hearing whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves. In the 1970s, a group of college students, driven by curiosity and a desire to debunk the supernatural, decided to spend a night in the manor. They brought with them cameras and recording equipment, determined to capture any evidence of the paranormal. As night fell, the manor seemed to come alive. The students heard footsteps echoing in empty hallways, saw doors open and close on their own, and felt an oppressive weight bearing down on them. One by one, they were overcome by a sense of dread and despair. In the dead of night, one of the students, a young woman named Sarah, found herself drawn to the manor's basement. She descended the creaking stairs, her flashlight flickering. In the dim light, she saw an old, ornate mirror covered in dust. As she wiped the surface clean, a face appeared in the reflection, not her own, but that of Edward Blackwood. His eyes were hollow, and his mouth twisted into a sinister grin. Sarah screamed and tried to run, but the mirror held her in place. Her friends found her the next morning, staring blankly into the mirror, her mind shattered by whatever she had seen. The college students fled the manor, leaving their equipment behind. When the authorities arrived, they found the house empty. The recordings captured by the students revealed chilling evidence: ghostly apparitions, objects moving on their own, and the anguished cries of Edward Blackwood. To this day, the manor remains abandoned, a place of darkness and terror. Years passed, and the story of the manor became a local legend, a cautionary tale told to scare children and warn teenagers against trespassing. But the manor's lure was strong, and every so often, a new group of thrill-seekers would venture into its shadowy depths. One such group consisted of 5 friends from a nearby city, each fascinated by the paranormal. They had heard the stories, seen the old news clippings, and watched the grainy footage left behind by the college students. Determined to uncover the truth, they planned a weekend stay, equipped with the latest ghost hunting technology. As they approached the manor, the air grew colder, and an unnatural silence settled around them. The front door creaked open as if inviting them inside. The Enfield Poltergeist is one of the most famous and extensively documented hauntings in the United Kingdom. It took place in the late 1970s and involved a series of terrifying events experienced by the Hodgson family in their council house at 284 Green Street, Enfield, London. In August 1977, single mother Peggy Hodgson and her 4 children began experiencing strange phenomena. The activity began with subtle disturbances, such as furniture moving on its own and unexplained knocking sounds. Initially, these occurrences were dismissed as minor annoyances, but they soon escalated into something far more unsettling. Peggy's daughters, Janet and Margaret, were particularly affected. Janet, the youngest, became the main focus of the poltergeist's attention, experiencing the most extreme manifestations of the haunting. The disturbances grew more intense and violent over time. The Hodgson children reported being physically thrown from their beds by an unseen force. Objects flew across rooms, and strange, disembodied voices could be heard. The knocking sounds that initially seemed random became a constant presence, following the family members as they moved from room to room. The entity appeared to be both malevolent and intelligent, as it seemed to respond to the family's fears and anxieties. One of the most disturbing aspects of the haunting was Janet's apparent possession. During episodes of possession, she would enter trances and speak in a deep, gravelly voice, claiming to be various spirits, including a man named Bill Wilkins, who had died in the house years before. These sessions were often accompanied by Janet levitating. The haunting seemed to center around Janet, who was subjected to physical attacks and psychological torment. The Enfield poltergeist quickly drew attention from the media and paranormal investigators. Reporters from the Daily Mirror and the Society for Psychical Research, SPR, were among the first to investigate. Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair, members of the SPR, conducted extensive investigations, spending significant time in the house to document the phenomena and interview the family. Their work resulted in a substantial collection of evidence, including photographs of Janet appearing to levitate and audio recordings of the strange voices. Despite this, skepticism remained high. Some investigators suggested that the events were a hoax orchestrated by the Hodgson children, particularly Janet. In a few instances, Janet was caught bending spoons and attempting to deceive the investigators. This led to accusations that the entire case was fabricated for attention and financial gain. Despite these claims, many witnesses, including neighbors and police officers, supported the family's accounts of the disturbances. The Hinterkaifeck murders are among the most perplexing and gruesome unsolved crimes in German history. This horrifying case involves the brutal slaying of 6 members of the Gruber family on their isolated farm in Bavaria, Germany, in 1922. The mystery surrounding the murders has fascinated true crime enthusiasts and investigators for decades, with numerous theories and little resolution. The Hinterkaifeck farm was located in a remote area near the village of Kaifeck, approximately 70 kilometers north of Munich. The farm was home to Andreas Gruber, a 63-year-old farmer, his 72-year-old wife Kazilia, their 35-year-old daughter Victoria, Victoria's 2 children, Kazilia and Joseph, ages 7 and 2, and the family's 45-year-old maid, Maria Baumgartner. The Gruber family led an insular life, primarily interacting with a small circle of local villagers. In the weeks leading up to the murders, the Gruber family reported several unsettling incidents. Andreas Gruber mentioned to neighbors that he had heard strange noises coming from the attic and noticed unfamiliar footprints in the snow surrounding the farm. These tracks seemed to lead to the house, but did not leave any sign of return. He also reported seeing a mysterious figure near the farm, but dismissed it as possibly a figment of his imagination. Despite his concerns, the locals did not take his warnings seriously, and the incidents were never fully investigated. The horrific crime occurred on the night of March 31, 1922. The Gruber family was brutally murdered in their home. Andreas, Kazilia, Victoria, Kazilia, and Joseph were all killed, along with the maid Maria. The violence was so extreme that it appeared the victims had been attacked while they were asleep. The crime scene was particularly unsettling as it indicated that the perpetrator had made himself at home. The murderer had eaten food, drunk wine, and made a mess in the kitchen before committing the murders. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that the killer might have known the family or had easy access to the house. The investigation into the Hinterkaifeck murders was extensive but yielded few answers. The local police conducted thorough searches of the area, questioned numerous suspects, and examined the evidence, but found no conclusive leads. The investigation was hindered by the remote location of the farm, the lack of physical evidence, and the mysterious nature of the crime. Several theories emerged over the years, including family dispute, serial killer, revenge or theft, and supernatural involvement. Despite numerous theories and suspects, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved. Over the years, several individuals were considered suspects: Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the Gruber family's former farmhand, unknown stranger, and neighbor Michael Plank. The Hinterkaifeck murders left an indelible mark on the region and the annals of criminal history. The case remains one of the most chilling and enigmatic unsolved crimes, with numerous books, documentaries, and speculative accounts exploring the mystery. The Villisca Axe murders are one of the most infamous and chilling unsolved murder cases in American history. The brutal slaying of the Moore family and 2 overnight guests in the small town of Villisca, Iowa, in 1912 remains a haunting and mysterious case, marked by extreme violence and a lack of resolution. The Moore family consisted of Josiah Moore, a 43-year-old farmer, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children, Herman 11, Catherine 9, Boyd 7, and Paul 5. The family lived in a modest house in Villisca, a quiet rural town in southwestern Iowa. On the night of June 9, 1912, the Moores invited 2 young friends, Lena and Ina Stillinger, to spend the night at their home. The girls were ages 8 and 12, respectively. The Moore family was well regarded in the community, and their home was a place of warmth and hospitality. The town of Villisca was known for its close-knit community and low crime rate. However, on that fateful night, the tranquility of the town would be shattered by an unimaginable act of violence. On the morning of June 10, 1912, a neighbor named Ross Moore, Josiah's brother, discovered the gruesome scene. Upon entering the Moore home, he was met with a horrific sight. Josiah, Sarah, their 4 children, and the 2 Stillinger girls had all been brutally murdered. Each victim had been struck multiple times with an axe, which was left at the scene. The attack was extremely violent. The victims were found in their beds, and the violence was so severe that it suggested the killer had taken his time. The murders were committed with an axe that belonged to the Moore family. The killer used the axe on every victim, including the children, and the crime scene was marked by a disturbing lack of disorder, suggesting a methodical and deliberate approach. One of the most chilling aspects of the case was that the murderer had used a piece of a blade from a bloody axe to cover the faces of the victims. Additionally, the murderer had cleaned his hands and possibly even bathed in the house, leaving behind a crime scene that suggested a disturbing level of calm and control. The investigation into the Villisca axe murders was extensive but ultimately unsuccessful. Local law enforcement, along with state and national investigators, worked tirelessly to solve the case. Several theories and suspects emerged, but no one was ever charged with the crime. Some of the key aspects of the investigation included: numerous suspects were considered over the years, including Frank Jones, a local businessman and former employer of Josiah Moore, who had a known conflict with the Moore family. Despite his motive, no concrete evidence linked him to the crime. Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who was known for his erratic behavior and had confessed to the crime under suspicious circumstances,